It is extremely challenging for consulting companies and other employers that rely exclusively and heavily on H-1B or L-1 workers with the new way the bill has been passed in the US Senate. Employers will have to be extremely strategic and creative on how they are able to use the system. For example, an employer would probably need to file for permanent residency or green card to make an employee into an intending immigrant so that they are not counted as an H-1B or L-1 worker for H-1B skilled worker and H-1B skilled worker dependent employers. Those are exceptions, and a good lawyer, a good law firm can work with you and strategize with you as employers to try to minimize the negative impact and fallout from this legislation. Well, if the Senate bill actually becomes the final law, which again we have serious reservations because in the House of Representatives they've already said they're not going to accept the Senate version of it, but in case it does end up passing, the issue is going to be how can an H-1B or L-1 worker prove by showing greater value in many levels than, say, a US worker. The biggest problem here is that we don't have enough supply in the United States today for technology workers, high-tech information technology workers. So a lot of them are, the demand is huge, the supply is very limited, and so by putting roadblocks on employers who have risen to the demand, the natural economic flow of demand, of supply and demand, and now they're finding roadblocks where they're required to advertise for US workers. From the US Department of Labor point of view, it makes perfect sense. It makes sense for the employer to, for the US government to want US employers to advertise for US workers. From a practical point of view, there just aren't enough technology workers in America today to fulfill the demand that exists, the burgeoning and exploding demand that we have for high-skilled technology workers. So just because we say we need to have US workers do it, yes, everybody believes that. Nobody, no employer in their right mind would take the trouble of hiring H-1 or L-1 workers, paying legal fees, going through hoops, jumping through it if they were available. The federal government relies on it. Major companies in the country rely on it. There is a huge shortage and a vacuum of high-tech workers in the country. So America, the reason the reason H-1s have expanded so much is because there has been a shortage of skilled workers to be able to meet the insatiable demand that exists in our country today as the leader in global technology. On the one hand, it does appear to be discriminatory, and it is if you look at it with that lens. But I always say every dark cloud always has a silver lining. And so in this bill, there are ways that you can get out of being considered an H-1B dependent employer. There are creative ways in which you can turn it around to keep the employee with you for a longer time by filing the green card for that person. For example, the bill allows you to file a green card as an employer either through the PERM methodology, the old-fashioned PERM through the Department of Labor, or through a points-based system similar to what we have in Canada. If the employer is proactive and aggressive and files the case for the employee through the PERM system, it will unite the employer with the employee for a longer time. It will protect both parties, and it will make it a better relationship in the long run. You can't change what the swell is. There is a feeling that if there is unemployment in America, why do we have foreign workers coming in? But I think the reality that a lot of people are not noticing is the fact that we have a huge demand for these services and the supply is not sufficient. And even though we've made science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM fields, so attractive, I think it's going to take the next generation, it may be another 5, 10, 15, 20 years before we've completely caught up with the supply meeting the demand that exists in this country. I think it would be fantastic if the federal government, the USCIS, the Department of Homeland Security, the Congress would do something to help spouses of H-1B workers, the H-4s, to obtain EAD cards similar to what the spouses of L-1s get it on the L2, the EAD card, it would take care of a lot of the problems. It would take care of the H-1B quota being limited, because even if an employer wants to file an H-1B for an H-4 candidate, the quota is probably used up. The cap has been met for the year. I think it would solve a lot of the problems. I know there's been some pushback, but USCIS and Department of Homeland Security, through regulations, were able to issue the L2 EADs for spouses. Maybe if the administration and the Department of Homeland Security could actually do it more through regulations without going through Congress, that would be wonderful. I think it would be a win-win. And I have personally spoken with people who've gone through hell personally in trying to work while on H-4, and the challenges and obstacles have been overwhelming. I think it's high time that we looked at this. If no immigration bill is passed, then the time processing for green cards, especially for people born in India and maybe in China secondarily, is right now in the employment-based third preference category. People are talking 20 to 40 years to get the green card. And in the second preference, which is people with a master's degree or bachelor's plus 5 years experience, they're talking 10 to 20 years for the green card case. What the bill, if it gets passed, will allow is it eliminates the per country quota limits, thereby allowing a lot more people to come in without the limits that we now suffer with countries like India and China, which have a greater percentage because they are larger countries with more populations coming into the US. Those will now be, everybody will have a level playing field from all countries across the globe. It's true that unless the law changes, nothing happens. The US Department of State, the person in charge of the Immigrant Visa Unit, Charlie Oppenheim, explained to us at an American Immigration Lawyers Association meeting that EB3 could end up taking between 20 and 40 years, particularly for people, nationals of India, people born in India. And that's just because there is a per country quota limit every year of how many people are allowed. And because in the current count, a person who's married, so for example, if the wife is the principal applicant, the husband is counted as the second, and if there's a child or two born outside, that's 4 immigrant visa numbers or 4 slots taken up. The way the current bill is, the bill that has just passed the US Senate is supposed to be implemented is that all those 4 will be considered as 1 immigrant visa per family unit. So we're basically either at least doubling or possibly quadrupling the number of immigrant visas without Congress getting involved, which would be fantastic. Now, Congress already passed this bill. The Senate has passed it. The House hasn't passed it. And Lord knows if the House will ever pass some version of it. Absolutely. I believe that the more we encourage people with high levels of education, particularly with PhD degrees, doctoral degrees, master's degree candidates, or because we acknowledge openly that we are having this huge shortage in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, by making it a little bit easier, by recognizing and giving them a little bit of an uptick and helping them to get their green cards faster, I think it's the way for us to go. We already have sort of a version of this in the current system with the extraordinary ability for Nobel Prize winners or professors or researchers or those whose work is in the national interest. This would simply expand that self-petitioning group of people. I think it is extremely important for the United States to recognize that we have been the world leader in technology, science, and every endeavor of the human mind and spirit because we have been open to bring the best and brightest from around the world to this great country. America is a nation of immigrants. Everybody's come from somewhere else except the Native Americans. And if we don't wake up and realize that we need to continue to make America the destination for the smartest and best people from around the world, we as a nation are going to end up suffering in the United States. Now, on the other hand, from the Indian perspective, the Indian economy has been growing way faster than the American economy. As a developing economy, of course, it had more room to grow, unlike a developed economy which has plateaued to some extent. And it is true that there are many more opportunities today in India than they were 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So it is fantastic that kids now have an option in both countries to choose where they can go, and whichever country makes it more conducive for its citizens and its people, and to encourages the best and brightest from around the world to work there, that's where people are going to go. If America puts roadblock after roadblock after roadblock for employers to bring in people, guess what? Like a lot of the major companies, they're going to have huge operations in other countries, and we in America are going to lose way more, because we benefit when immigrants come here and buy houses and buy cars and spend on our economy and help us to become more successful. We are the Murthy Law Firm. The world's most popular legal website at murthy.com is always prepared and ready to deal with any challenge that is presented to us. We have strategic, creative lawyers that are always looking how to approach a problem, and rather than looking at them as problems, we look at them as challenges and opportunities of how to resolve it, because at the end of the day, our heart is in the place of helping people to realize and accomplish their great American dream of living and working in this country, making that process smooth, effortless, seamless, to work with employers and companies and businesses so that they can bring valued employees to this country and help these valued employees find a fabulous home with a great employer and the best law firm in the world they can work with. We are looking to hiring, training, mentoring. We are keeping up to date with the latest changes in the law. We are monitoring the law to see which way the winds are blowing. And whatever happens, however turbulent the waters grow, we are able to, at the Murthy Law Firm, chart our course and navigate through turbulent waters and find the peace, the horizon, the rainbow at the end of the dark clouds. The one advice I would give to most new immigrants coming to America, whether you're from India or Africa or Asia or Europe, is America is a nation of laws. We don't really care, who your father or grandfather is, or your mother or grandmother for that matter. All we care is that we are a nation of laws. America believes in the rule of law. Don't come here and try to scam the system. Don't try to find ways to manipulate the system or break the laws. Keep in mind that even US presidents, while in office and considered the world's most powerful man or woman, has ended up paying the price for having broken or violated the law. Don't think you can come here and continue with a mentality that may have worked very successfully in another country. Producing false documents, creating information, producing information that is fraudulent, improper, unethical, will only get you into trouble, not just in the short term, but in the long term. It will get you deported. It will prevent you from getting visas. It will make your life a living hell, because American law is very, very strict, the immigration laws with respect to any kind of criminal activity, and applying for visas, what they consider through fraud or improper documentation or misrepresentation, can have a lasting negative impact on you and your life in this country, and may completely close the door and shut your life down. So we need to change our mindset. We need to appreciate that we are coming to a new country, a new culture, and we need to respect and appreciate their laws and norms just as the way that they respect our rules and our laws when they come to our country.